We are live.
Great, thanks. Welcome to the number 65th Town Hall on August 31st, 2020. We've got an exciting updates for you today. So without further ado, I will pass over to Tio, who is going to give us a People Ops update. Thank you, Tio.
Thanks for the intro, Terry. Hey, everyone. Nice to be here. And for People Ops updates, we have 2 anniversaries today. Congrats to Jason for being with the team for more than 3 years. A huge thank you from Status, Jason. Dimitri's first year with Status. Big thank you for Dimitri as well for being an integral part of Nimbus team. And more brilliant people have joined Status since our last call. So we have new joiners, Ruslan Mahov. Ruslan, welcome to the team. Ruslan will be joining as Director of Finance. His background is in technology, entrepreneurship, banking, private equity. In terms of expertise, he's been working in equity, debt capital. He's been part of startups, fintech, property tech, blockchain, crypto assets, you name it, peer-to-peer platforms, again, mergers and acquisitions, everything he could touch his, he put his hands on, basically. Mark Spanbrook, hope I pronounced your name correctly, Mark. Big warm welcome to Mark. He's a brilliant engineer. He will be joining Team Dagger. And to bit of background on Mark, he has been an active contributor for projects like Sustainable Source, which looks at financial sustainability for open source projects, Identity Box, which is hardware for the decentralized web, NIM PC, which is a secure multi-party computation for the NIM programming language, and Cogito, hope I pronounced that correctly, which is a project focusing on self-sovereign identity. In the same time, we have to say farewell to a few people that have left a stamp in the way Status does things. So farewell, Carrie, the queen of people operations and internal communications. She's moving up the ladder, but she's not really saying goodbye. She'll be in touch with the team from time to time and helping Status on a part-time basis with people operations, communications, and so on, and doing her thing, basically. Danny is a finance master. He's stepping away on the 31st of October. He's pushing his career forward, and this will only happen after he will hand all the ropes to Ruslan. Big thank you from the team, Danny, and appreciate all the work you have done for Status, and wish you all the best moving forward. In terms of open positions now, I think like the core team, the dApps team, is looking for a senior React developer. Hester and a few other people want to revamp dApps, and they're looking for a new addition to the team. We're still looking for protocol engineers. We're interested in messaging protocols for VAC. Ideally, 1 junior and 1 senior developer. And we also have 1 more slot in Team Dagger, which will work on distributed networking. Passing on the conversation to Hester, I think.
Thanks, Tio. Right, we're going to now hear an update from Hester, who is going to give us an update from the core team. Thanks, Hester.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Tio. Great to see new people joining Status as always. Sad to see people go as well, but usually it's with new exciting prospects. Can you skip to the next slide, please? Thank you. So last week's focus has been heavily on the referral program and getting that ready for release. There's a lot of dependencies in there. We also have the challenge of relying on the Play Store itself to fully test out the program. But we're nearly there, and we're looking to test, let's say, some final run some final tests on the program this afternoon and tomorrow, and then we will be releasing that in phases where we first enable advertisers to use referral URLs, and soon thereafter we will look at friend invite referral URLs. So those are coming up. Release 1.8 will for sure include a series of bug fixes and improvements, because we don't want to build up technical debt. At the same time, new features whenever they're ready. We definitely have some features in development, as I also mentioned last time. Notifications on iOS are still being worked on, along with in-app notifications. Some progress going on there as well. Group chat invite links are in final review, I would say, as well as adding local contact names, which we know will make it easier to remember some of those random animal names to help identify people. Mentions is in progress, and obviously we also want to be able to tie that to notification, so you get a notification of a mention to make that more usable in the end. So those are in progress, and we'll release those whenever they're ready. No set timelines yet. We never know what we're running into. So we don't want to make promises we can't keep. In focus is still some of the features that we have decided on during the roadmap planning process, a workshop that we had a while back. One of the more exciting aspects there, and I believe Dean is also joining us to answer a town hall question on this topic. One of the things we're looking at is how can Waku be used by dApps. So there's definitely different people, core contributors from different angles looking at how can we make this possible. Another topic that's in focus is organization channels. That is something we were really excited about. At the same time, we do know a lot of projects or organizations are quite happily using things like Discord and Slack, and are not super likely to shift to status and risk losing some of their community. So we're looking at what are ways that we can facilitate communities better on status without, let's say, introducing the risk of losing your community. So looking at some other options there. Local contact names I mentioned, ways to help identify each other. In that same sort of arena, there's an investigation going on, and there's also a post on Discuss that you can follow around adding a profile photo. This comes like as a package deal with display names almost. The difficulty with adding profile pictures is that sending photos over the network is not straightforward. An exciting alternative is looking at avatars, which if you go on Discuss, you can read more about the pros and cons of doing that. That's the update for core. I had a brief look at the retention numbers, basically our metrics. How are we doing? There's definitely some growth visible in terms of connected peers over the course of a day, over the course of a week. So that's really exciting to see. It is still early on to see a solid impact on retention, I would say, but it's worthwhile looking into the data a little bit more, which is what I plan to do in the coming 2 weeks. So, that's what I had, Terry. Thank you.
Thanks, Hester. That was really interesting. Over to Corey for an update on securities and infrastructure.
Hello, everyone. I'll be talking for Jacob today, but first, a couple updates for security. Got a new article from Rajiv, Life of a Message. This is a really good one. It talks about how a message that you send on the status network or through your status app traverses through all of the different layers of the stack, the technology stack. So you can figure out at what points during the life cycle of a message your package gets encrypted, gets obfuscated. So you can figure out all the different ways, or some of the different ways that we're protecting your privacy and security. So go read that. It's a great article if you don't have a hard time understanding what's actually happening on the back end when you push send on your mobile app. Also, phase 2 of the Nimbus audit is wrapping up, and the issues are being dealt with. That's going really well. We have an upcoming article that's going to detail all of the things that happened in phase 1, either for both the organizational side of the audit, because that's done differently, as well as all of the security issues of the F2 NIM beacon chain that are being dealt with and have been dealt with. And then I'll also talk about how phase 2 went and what we expect for phase 3 of that. To wrap it up. So that's going really well. Really happy about all that. From DevSecOps, I'm setting up an instance of the Hive, Cortex, and MISP, which is a open source, awesome piece of software, a couple pieces of software for handling incident response within an organization. So when something goes wrong, you can automatically create tickets and do all kinds of really neat things. Once that's set up, I'll probably do a kind of walkthrough tutorial to show how we're handling that type of stuff on the back end in one of these town halls. So look out for that. And as always, back up your seed phrase, remember your password, and get a key card. For infrastructure, Jakob keeps doing all the things all the time. For the fleet, we got deployed referral service, production environment, disabled Whisper and Bridge for non-production fleets, Waku only. Made Waku the default protocol for status go. That's awesome. So we're upgrading all of the back-end stuff to be more scalable for all of you. So use less bandwidth on your phone. Deploy push notifications on test fleets. So you can see those coming soon in the status app. We got to test it to make sure it's working well. Resolved an extremely weird firewall bug in status fleets. Weird things happen on the back end. Jakob's there to look at it and fix it. As for Nimbus, added floating IPs to AWS hosts to prevent IP changes. Almost finished setting up Windows CI hosts for desktop builds. So desktop is getting closer and closer and closer to getting to you. Upgrade Nix packages and status React and multiple build tools. So we have a few upgrades on the right, not too much. Really happy that we switched to Waku only. The more and more we do that, the less like the more we get to kind of upgrade the back-end services and provide better services. That's all we have.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate those updates. Next up, we're going to have Guy Louis, who's going to give us a really exciting update on the key card.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So for today, we wanted to give a recap of the work that the team has been doing on payments in the past month, and especially about Status Pay, our payment network. So yeah, I'm not talking today about what we worked on the past week, but yeah, taking some kind of distance and looking at what we did and what we're going to do next. So the keycard team has been focusing on payments for a couple of months now. By the way, for those who just joined, keycard team is Michele, Andrea, and myself. We get a lot of help from a lot of core contributors on specific subjects. So yeah, what I wanted to cover are the use cases. I mean, these big, large use cases that we're working on for all those months, what we've achieved, and what's next, especially for Status Pay. So can you go to next slide, please? So yeah, overall, looking at things from a distance, there are two main use cases we are working on, and all our underlying work is around those two. First, we want to allow fast, cheap, and secure payments in the real world, meaning offline, not when you're in front of your PC. For instance, when you're standing in front of someone and you want to make a payment, the typical case is you want to pay for stuff at a store by tapping a card, for instance. And by the way, in this specific use case, we want to do that in a specific way. We want to make becoming a vendor really permissionless. Anyone could become this merchant. And we want the merchant to only have to use status on his mobile. We don't want to impose him to use any point of sales hardware or things like that. But that's one. And number two is we want keycards to be able to come preloaded with assets. Whatever they are, SNTs, non-fungible tokens, ETH, DAI, anything. And we want to build an easy experience to retrieve these assets from the card to any wallet. This is not as trivial as it seems. You could say, hey, but what it is you're working on here, it's pretty obvious, but it's not, because we don't want the assets to be locked up on the cards, because these key cards, they have private keys, right? Holding some external owned accounts. We don't want the assets to be locked there. We want to keep some control over the assets until the cards are really used. These assets are actually on smart contracts and not on the cards, on the keys that are on the cards themselves. And the user experience needs to be easy. And in reality, it's not obvious because there are a lot of things that are needed. You need a keycard compatible free browser. You need a wallet where to retrieve to. You need to browse a redeem user interface. You need to pay gas, which is very expensive today. So a lot of things. And if you want the whole experience to be easy, it's not trivial. Can you go to next one, please? So yeah, some results. For payments, we first worked on building the logic for all these in-person payments, and so that they can happen with a key card. And here again, first you could ask, but what's the difficulty here? I mean, it could be pretty straightforward. After all, you've got this status wallet. I mean, the status app. Key card is integrated within the app. So you just need to make a payment with your status wallet to some QR code that the merchant is showing to you. And we're already right there, right? So what's the difficulty? I wanted to outline why we had to work on that. First, we want point of sale to be untrusted. And we come back to this thing that merchants should be able to use their phone. So if the point of sale is not trusted, we don't want users to enter a PIN of their card on this phone. The funds thus cannot be stored on the keys of the card themselves, and the funds needs to be on smart contracts wallets. So we needed to build an architecture where the funds are on smart contract wallets, and these wallets need to be associated in some ways with a card. A given wallet is associated with a given card. That's one. And the other thing is we want vendors to be able to use point of sale application. So we want this application to be customizable, and your phone should be able to, I mean, you should be able to have any card tap to the phone to sign a transaction. So that's not the way it works today. With your status phone, you sign transaction with your own keys, not the keys of the card that someone is tapping on your phone. So we built a specific screen called the request screen that can be called by any dApp with a specific Web3 JavaScript call. If you can go to next slide. So if you want to have more detail about this payment network logic, it's on our repo. And the things we built are the things outlined here. So there's a dApp. That's the point of sale dApp that the merchant is running. It's communicating with the key card through this request screen that's being called by the dApp to the phone. And there's a specific applet also on the key card for payments that's called keycard cache. And we've got a smart contract wallet, and we've got a registry that keeps the association between wallets and cards. Can you go to next one, please? Yeah, thanks. And so on the preloaded cards subject, I'm going to be quick here, but you can check on our repo how this is implemented. But it consists of a dApp that runs well, we've got this architecture in place where some smart contracts that we call buckets are holding assets that each card can redeem. And the user needs to have status installed, browse a redeem dApp, tap his card to retrieve the assets on whichever wallet he wants. And this is done, which is a custom version of the request screen called the redeem screen. So we have a prototype. We have all these pieces done. The redeem dApp, for information, is we only have a prototype for now, and the UI of the real redeem dApp is under works by an external contributor. Next one, please. Yeah, can you go to next one, please? Yeah, great, this one. Yeah. So yeah, previous one. Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's the previous one now. Cool.
That one, sorry.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. So yeah, so what do we want to do? We want to have these fast and cheap payments in the real world with key card or without the key card. And we've got these problems with gas prices on Ethereum right now. So we'd like this payment network that's cheap to also be usable with dApps. So given the work we've already done, what do we miss actually? We need higher throughput than L1. We need cheap gas costs, obviously, than L1. And we need fast economic finality. Fast economic finality, it's for the keycard case. When you're standing in line at a shop and you're buying things with your card, the merchants needs to know that the transaction is approved within a couple of seconds. So our goal is less than 3 seconds. You cannot wait more than that. Otherwise, you cannot have in-person payments. So basically, we need status pay, which is a scalability solution, mostly on layer 2. And yeah, you can go to next one, please. So status pay. Quick view of the features of this chain we want to build. We want it to be EVM compatible because we worked on some smart contracts and we need to port them here. And we want our dApps to run there too. We need high throughput, being really large here, but well, more than 200 TPS. We want cheap gas costs. The objective we've set ourselves is less than 5 cents per transaction. Fast economic finality, less than 3 seconds as discussed. We want SNT to be used as a utility there. I'll come back on that. And we want to be able to transact with any ERC20 on this chain. And we've dropped out the requirement of the transaction being anonymous for now there, because it would make things a bit more complex and would delay us having status pay. Yeah, can you go to the next one, please? So how are we going to do that? So we work with LibDAO, which are experts at layer 2 solutions. And we've evaluated different technologies. I'll be super synthetic and a bit simplistic here, but we've studied state channels, zero knowledge proof rollups, and optimistic rollups. And basically, we're going for optimistic rollups because we need EVM now. I mean, state channels cannot offer EVM, and ZK rollups will probably enable that, but it's not ready for now. So we're just proceeding with the optimistic rollups. And in a word, what is an optimistic rollup? So it's a layer 2 chain with a number of nodes that we call validators or operators. They are listening for transaction. They're gathering them in block. There's no proof of work consensus there. And these operators, these nodes, they can submit these blocks to layer 1 by providing all the transaction data and some Merkle root of the state of the layer 2. And thus, the cost of transaction is much lower and the throughput much higher. And anyone can challenge the validity of the layer 2 from layer 1 because it has access from layer 1 on all the transactions and state of the channel. Yeah, so that's optimistic rollup. So next, yeah, so, well, could we use any optimistic rollup? So I wanted to outline what's really specific for us here, because there are different implementation of optimistic rollup. We need fast economic finality, less than 3 seconds, and SNT as a utility. That's what differentiates us. If you can go to next one. So what's the plan, more precisely? So we've worked with LibDAO a lot. They've been super helpful. And we wrote a system design document that's explaining all the problem we faced, all the rationale, and why it led us to the decision I'm going to explain now. But there are still some, these are complex subjects for sure. And optimistic rollups is all over the news, I'd say. Everyone wants to work on optimistic rollup, but still the reality is that there's no one solution on mainnet now, maybe except synthetics, I guess. But it's not a totally mature, there's no proven solution. So we have open questions. first one being, are we going to deploy our own rollup, or are we going to use a joint one with other projects? And John set up some super interesting discussion with Uniswap, MakerDAO, Aragon that we started last week to share our plans for optimistic rollups. How exactly are we going to create this fast economic finality? We want to use optimism code, and they are in the middle of a new release, and so when uncertainties are when are they going to release it? Maybe in the coming days, but maybe in a couple of weeks. And all the decentralization details on layer 2, which consensus we use, what are the incentives of the operators to run a node and to get rewards. I can go to the next one. So to be very concrete, our immediate short-term next steps, we want to release a minimum viable product, index 0, I mean, most simple one of this status pay chain. Main goal is to have throughput and cheap transaction and to be able to use that for DApp. So that you guys, I mean, anyone in status working on our status DApp to be able to use this. So we want to use Optimism code because their code is the most mature, and we've got detailed comparison of all the rollup code bases that are existing in the detailed document that we shared in the link previously. So we want to run an instance that's going to be first centralized and that needs to be trusted. It's going to be super simple. It's going to be one node. And there's going to be just one honest observer that's watching for the data that the node is posting on L1. And for this simple version, no staking or no challenges that can be submitted. So we're going to deploy this node. We're going to build the bridge for the assets and deploy this one watchtower. So this is a matter of, I won't say days because it's going to be a matter of weeks. Our main dependencies on the OVM code. They are releasing new code. Their repos are moving every day now, but to be followed. But this is a matter of a couple of weeks. And then MVP1, if you can go to next slide. We wanted to enable keycard and trustlessness. So this is still going to be centralized. It's still going to be one node for now. But we're going to implement all the challenges mechanism so that an operator, I mean, meaning this node, can be challenged from L1. So this operator is going to stake SNT for its operations. And if any watchtower, I mean, anyone that's watching the activities of this chain is finding a problem from the data that's being posted, it can slash the stake and get the stake back from the operator. And this is what's going to enable fast economic finality because then we're going to be able to reimburse. I mean, for instance, if you're in a shop and if a merchant in a shop is doing some bad behaviors, he's going to have stakes, and his stakes are going to be used once the challenge has been raised. And we're going to deploy our payment network contracts and adapt our dApps to L2 from there. So the planning here is, I'm being very imprecise, but it's a couple of months, another couple of weeks. And next, please, yeah, next slide, please. Then next, we're going to need to build a UI from status to use status pay. I mean, to bridge, to move your assets from layer 1 to status pay. So we're going to need to build this UI. And then the big thing to develop is decentralization of this chain. I mean, we're talking about the chain, but here it's still just one node in the MVP 0 and 1. So we need to find the right consensus, and we need to build the right economy around gas there, so that the operators have incentives to join and build blocks and submit them. And the other thing is we want SNT to be used as a staking, but if we make a joint effort with other projects, this is not going to work out. I mean, in this case, we need a neutral token like ETH for the staking. Yeah, that's an overview of what we've done, what we're working on, what are the open questions, and I wanted to highlight some some of our short-term goals for this. That was a bit long, but we've not communicated a lot about that in the past week, so really wanted to share that with you. And this gas price issue with Ethereum is so important right now. I wanted to pass the message that this work we're doing in the Keycard team today, we're going to have in a couple of weeks this MVP 0 that can bring a solution for our own dApps to be used with less gas. And that's it for what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Guy-Louis. That was really interesting. I'm sure people really enjoyed that update. Next up, we are going to hear from Zahari on the Nimbus team.
Hello, I'm going to give a brief update regarding our progress. Many of you probably know that the start of the Medava network, the first official and public Ethereum 2 testnet, has been quite rough both for us and the community as a whole. Our client entered the network with a very general failure to communicate on the network level with the rest of the nodes, which led to the fact that we were not able to deliver any attestations in the first 2 weeks of operating the network. And then the network experienced a much more severe catastrophe and a crisis when one of the other teams, Prism, suffered from a timing synchronization issue that basically disconnected all of their nodes from the rest of the network. And so because the network needs a sufficient quorum of validators to operate and agree on the state of the network, it was not able to progress. Finalization was halted for quite a long time, and the nature of Ethereum 2 is such that when finalization doesn't happen in time, the load on the clients and the required memory use increases significantly, and this created difficulties for everyone to operate. But luckily, I'm happy to report that basically the network survived. The Nimbus was able to get through these difficult times, and we delivered a lot of fixes in the meantime, which improved the stability of Nimbus. And right now, if you are fully synced, you should be able to experience at least 95% of delivered attestations on a regular, normal desktop, modern desktop machine. And I wouldn't specify what exactly is that, but if you have any performance that is kind of worse than this, please report it as an issue. Nevertheless, there are some outstanding problems, and this sensitivity towards the CPU power of your computer is one of them. Some clients are trying to use Nimbus on Raspberry Pi, and it is a goal for us that this should be perfectly possible. But right now, it seems that CPU power on these machines is just not enough to keep up with the network. And our architecture right now is a bit constrained. We are running on a single thread and trying to handle both the computational requirements and communication requirements on a single thread. And this makes it a little bit more challenging to operate smoothly on low-power devices right now. We are working towards solving this issue, and hopefully we'll have a solution soon. A kind of consequence of the same issue is that when your node is under stress, it starts to lose peers because it doesn't have enough time to process the networking messages, or maybe it doesn't process them in the right way, and this leads to other peers disconnecting. We still have this relatively major issue that if you leave your Nimbus node over time, it will accumulate more and more system resources like memory. And for this reason, we still recommend that you do frequent restarts, let's say once per 6 hours or 4 hours. And this is another issue we'll be focusing on and trying to come up with a solution. And finally, since the network has accumulated quite a lot of history now, the required storage for keeping the entire big chain in the beacon. Anyway, the entire beacon chain is quite large now, and this is an area we haven't been optimizing significant enough. And we should address this with urgency, because it becomes unpractical to run Nimbus on virtual VPS, for example, machines which low capacity. These are the machines that we use on AWS to test our fleet of Nimbus nodes. To help with some of these issues, we've been preparing a new makefile target called Medava FastSync. It's currently in PR in the Nimbus repo. And it should help by basically skipping this difficult history of the beacon chain and directly starting from a recent state. So try this as soon as it is merged, and you can report. Otherwise, I will just mention a few stats from our audits. If you're more interested, obviously you should follow the more detailed write-ups that Corey is preparing. But just some stats. There's been 31 issues discovered, reported so far. 2 of them has been classified as high severity or more critical issues. There are 8 in the medium severity and 8 in the low severity. Some of them are unclassified, but I would say they are closer to the low severity category. You can find all of them across 3 repos. 21 are in the NIM beacon chain repo, 9 are in the libp2p repo, and 1 is in the NIP crypto repo. One thing in common because of among all of the issues is that they have a prefix in the issue title called SEC, S-E-C. So if you're interested to browse, you can find issues there. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Zahari. That was awesome. Next up is we're going to hear from Johnny from the marketing team.
Thanks, Terry. Quick one today. Some ongoing work. Alec ran a brand campaign, just driving brand awareness, pushing out some of the blog posts we've written to, and just trying to drive traffic to the site. And here are some of the results. Overall, pretty good. We're going to be optimizing this over the next few weeks and months, as we are with our other campaigns. So it's just good to get these pilots off the ground. So a lot of partner comms and partner outreach is going on right now. So a couple weeks ago, we hosted an AMA in status with Kyber Network, and that's the first of many. And that's just like the first activation we've run. We're doing once again a lot of outreach to other partners and going to be rolling out a lot of comms along the lines of this AMA. So look for that with some other cool partners. Brazil and Argentina, we've contracted 3 influencers now, and we're finalizing contracts for a few others, but check them out. Bruno Germano, once again, is quite technical. Cryptomanicos is a blockchain-centric influencer in Brazil, and Block Latina. And we're really excited to get them on board ahead of the referral program launch, because obviously they'll be key players in that. And then also in Brazil and Argentina, we've got some educational courses that we're going to kick off work on now with Fernando Amaral in Brazil and Course IT in Argentina. So those are going to be around dApp development and then showcasing status in the course as well. That's great. And then some upcoming work, which is exciting. Obviously, just preparing for the 1.6 and then 1.7 referral launch. Global plans for that, and activating all of our partners and influencers. And yeah, looking forward to that one. And then a lot of events upcoming that have materialized over the past couple weeks. Live Chain, and kudos to Corey, who's going to be presenting status at a lot of these. So thank you, Corey. Live Chain, which is a great one. The Vancouver Biennale is a cool one. It's with an art group in Vancouver, and it's being run by Jessica Angel, who's really a core community member in the NFT and decentralized art community. So working with her to showcase status at the event, and then also they're building out a sculpture over the course of the next 2 years, which we will incorporate status in some fun and exciting ways. We're just going to concept that with Jessica. Block Security Conference, so Corey will present status there. And then HCPP, the Hackers Congress at Paralelní Polis. It's the Hackers Conference in Prague. And we're really excited to be part of that one, because it's really the target audience for us. Hackers at the space, at a hacker space, who are using Status, and it's cool. So we'll announce this in the coming weeks, but Status will be the official comms partner for the event, in which we'll set up public channels for the event and share exclusive content, and then host some AMAs with some of the top speakers in Status. So that's a really great one for us, and it's a really cool group and a cool community to be a part of. So excited. That's it for me.
Thanks, Johnny. Really interesting stuff there. Next, I'm going to hand over to Simona and Jinho for the updates from the community and our ambassadors program.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. So I will start giving these updates on high-level community stuff that we are preparing, gearing up, and then we'll hear from Jinho about the ambassadors program and how that's all evolving. Diving straight in, I am going to run a survey on our ambassadors and power users, just so I get a better understanding of where we are right now, what people are motivated by, what their frustrations are, whatever status relevant behavior they're displaying, and really trying to get into those conversations to get a little bit more insight into what makes them come back, what makes them interact, what makes them share their experiences with their own communities, so that we can create a more meaningful space and really create those valuable experiences for people coming in. Exploring new ways of using the status of offerings. I think that's also very important. There's a few people reaching out to me over Twitter and essentially asking about all sorts of different things. One of the key ones coming up is a competition for some stickers for Pride. Organized by Nifty Pride Foundation. So that'll be very interesting to see that community coming in and hopefully really benefiting from the chat, but also the wallet features and the browser and so on. So looking forward to feedback on that. And then obviously focusing on organic growth. Johnny mentioned this earlier. There's a whole host of partnerships that we are working on. It's very important to support other projects in the ecosystem. As we know, the tide lifts all boats. So I think it's imperative for us to be there for other projects and see how we can increase the value that they offer to their communities. So there's a lot of very interesting stuff coming up. So stay tuned. There'll be loads of things in the works. And the main thing is around education. There's a lot of, and we're still in 2020, we're still struggling with the fact that there isn't enough straightforward education or resource for people to dive into what Ethereum has to offer. And so we're spinning up a few different courses or educational initiatives with some of the partners that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to work with Aave on a DeFi course, or rather how to DeFi responsibly. That's in the works. Another one focused on Brazil. And this is something that I did at the end of last year with this blockchain academy in Brazil, focused on educating youth in the Rio favelas and really teaching them not only development, but also basic financial literacy, and also maybe teaching them about the options and the choices that are out there, aside the traditional models that are clearly not working for them. So that's in the works. That is going to be very exciting. And My Crypto, we're going to work on something around security. Partnerships in the works. Like I say, MakerDAO, Aave, there's a whole bunch of things, of collaborations that we're putting together. And then partner AMAs, as Johnny said, there's a few of them being scheduled, and it's really exciting to see a lot of people being very excited about it, including Vitalik. So we're gonna try to schedule that at a time that makes sense for him and for us. And yeah, there we go. That's it. And now Jinho with ambassadors.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let me give you a brief update regarding the ambassador program from now on. There are 56 status ambassadors from 25 countries at the moment, and there were about 40 ambassadors in Q2, so we've got more than 15 ambassadors in Q3 until now. And for your information, ambassador candidates are officially recognized as a status ambassador when they complete their first task. And Russian and Nigerian ambassadors actively participate in the program in particular. We are going to take a look at a breakdown of the completed tasks on the next slide. Next slide, please. We've got 86 completed tasks in Q3 until now, which are more than the entire completed tasks in Q2 already. Thanks to the recent payout structure updates, ambassadors paid more attention to their tasks with their skill sets very passionately. You can find more details on the completed tasks on the weekend board, and I will present some featured completed tasks on the next slide. Next slide, please. So big shout out to all the 35 ambassadors. So those ambassadors moved the status community forward in Q3 until now. So appreciate all the ambassadors who spread the word of status worldwide with us again. All the completed tasks are priceless and meaningful, but let me present some featured completed tasks here. First of all, a Ukrainian ambassador named Yaroslav hosted a webinar introducing status principles and all the products of the status network. This was super epic, and he said there were more than 100 people watched the live streaming. Also, Tochukwu from Nigeria published a blog post on status and the status network, and a lot of other ambassadors also wrote blog posts on status in a variety of blogging platforms. One of the monumental work from status ambassadors in Q3 was Enrico TBENR, Enrico's technical contribution to status in enabling audio messages in chats. His amazing work was featured on a blog post on our status as well. Also, an Italian ambassador, Marco, 100% translate our homepage into Italian alone. So thanks to our ambassador's passion for the open, secure, and decentralized society. And next slide, please. Regarding our translation campaign, our ambassadors and open source translators help translate status into 13 different languages. The number of supported languages is the same as the previous quarter, but we've updated new copy for image sending, audio messages, referral program, and etc. For your information, some of the words and sentences related to this referral program were not fully updated for V1.6 yet, but we can cover most of the major languages in the status for the status community. Thanks. That's it from my end.
Thanks, Simona and Jinho. That was really interesting. Right, finally, we are going to just go through some question and answers. We had a few questions that we've had to defer over the last couple of town halls. So hopefully this is we can address those today. So question 1 from Celio is, how well does status work in adversarial environments? Saw someone mention difficulties in Belarus. I recall status not working in China last year. I assume a state agency could sniff out status users and put them in concentration camps if they really wanted to. Mysterium is opening up their decentralized VPN network to application developers. Maybe something to look at incorporating. I'm going to pass that over to Corey, if you don't mind. Corey, would you be able to answer that question for us?
Yeah, it's a hard question, but So most of the issues that we've seen in terms of people in places that have a hard time connecting to the status network is due to their country having a firewall that makes it difficult for them to connect to our Bootstrap nodes, meaning that when they open up the application, when they look for servers to connect to the status network, the initial ones that we have hard-coded in the application get blocked somehow or another. But once you're able to connect to the status network, it's very difficult for people to sniff out that traffic, as well as who you're talking to and what you're saying, based on how we obfuscate the messages being passed around and where they're going and where they're coming from, as well as the contents of those messages. That being said, again, like we still use what's known as a distributed hash table, or a Kademlia-like network discovery model. So that means that people can sniff out your IP and then look at that traffic, or understand that certain types of traffic are coming from a certain type of IP, if they have a tremendous amount of resources doing so. But they won't know what that traffic is. And we're looking at different ways to make that better. But when you compare what we do to anything else that's available of note, it's quite secure and very difficult to see what's being done. So like in the most adversarial setting, it's still really, really difficult to figure that out. But we're still working on ways to make it easier for people to connect to the network and start sending messages back and forth. I can't like give you strong guarantees that no one can ever figure out anything, because we still have more research to do and work to do to figure out how to make it better. But in terms of my understanding of the cryptography and how messages get passed around the network, go read the article that we recently published that I mentioned in this town hall. It's very, very, very difficult for even global adversaries, that's someone who understands, who has a large view of the entire network, to figure out who's talking to who and what they're sending. But we'll continue to make that better.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate that. Question 2 from Canberra. This is based on my opinion. How about if we will allow third parties or resellers to sell our key cards to their countries? Guy-Louise, would you be able to answer this question for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it totally makes sense. It's not something we've been working on proactively. We've not been looking for distributors, but this is definitely something we can do. I mean, we have a stock of cards. We're able to ship batches of them. So definitely, I mean, you can, I mean, if anyone at this stage where we're not proactive on that, anyone can just reach out to us and explain where they'd like to distribute key cards, either on status channel or on get keycard at status.im, and we can take it from there.
Thanks, Guy-Louis. Question 3 from Celio again. I saw that Status, Waku, may be carrying Whisper's torch going forward. Has there been any discussions about directly contributing to the Go Ethereum being the built-in default messaging protocol accessible by Ethereum developers would be a big win? Dean, are you online? Are you able to answer that question for us?
Yeah, I'm here. So
thanks, Dean.
The brief summary is that we did have a discussion with the Go Ethereum team. The problem, however, being that if Waku is merged into Go Ethereum, for example, they would have to continue maintaining that software, and they do not have the capacity to do so. And therefore, there's not really much value in Waku being built right into the Ethereum client, because, for example, Whisper was still actually separate from Ethereum. It will just, there's no real benefit to it being in the code base. It probably will just make it harder for everyone. Like it would require building a Go version that is then also maintained by them, and they would have to manage that entire project and have to keep in sync with our versions, etc.
Thanks, Dean. Appreciate your answer there. And our last question is from Flex. Question 4, when can we expect keycard integration on iOS? So Guy-Louis, would you be able to handle that question, please?
Yeah, sure. So It's definitely in the backlog of keycard items that the core team is gonna handle. It's actually number 2 because number 1 in the backlog is to allow better management of the keycards account, meaning turn a normal account to a keycard account, or being able to just delete a keycard account. That's number 1. And number 2 is iOS integration. This being said, it's not been prioritized as part of the top priorities that will help with retention. So it's difficult to give a precise date for that. What I can say is that there's a plan to speed these things up, and we've been discussing if we could get a contractor to work on keycard. So can't give a precise date. We're gonna have iOS integration for keycard, that's for sure, but when exactly, difficult to say for now.
Thanks, Guy-Louis. So that is it for the town hall today. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who participated and gave updates today. It was really, really interesting. And also to thank you to everyone that's been listening and joining in those updates. On behalf of everyone at Status, we do want to wish Kerry all the best in her new role. It's going to be really sad to see you go. And I think I sort of speak on behalf of everyone. Thank you for everything you've done at Status. So good luck, Kerry. And the next town hall will be on the 14th of September. So we will see you then. Keep those questions coming. Thank you.